In this video, I'm going to be doing a deep dive on the neuroscience behind drum circles and how our nervous system plays a role in our responses to life, our responses to the music, and how using music we can bridge the gap and help heal and bring balance to the nervous system. So, this is going to be a deeper dive. I'll try to do some commentary along with the document, but we're gonna mostly read it word for word. So I'm gonna share my screen. We're gonna go over it. I'll give my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts because it's really powerful to really understand what is truly happening in the drum circles, what we're really creating within ourselves and as a collective when we move into coherence with one another and the power that that has. Um, so let me share my screen. All right, the Rhythmic Brain, a neuroscientific guide for the drum circle facilitator. The architecture of human experience, a nervous system primer. The grand network, your body's command center. At the very core of every human experience, every thought, feeling, movement, and connection lies the nervous system. It is the body's grand communications network and intricate, elegant architecture responsible for transmitting signals between the brain and every other part of the body, including our internal organs. The system's ceaseless activity controls our ability to move, breathe, see, think, and feel, orchestrating the complex symphony of life. To understand its relevance to the drum circle, it is essential to first grasp its fundamental structure, which is divided into two primary components, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Okay, the central nervous system is the conductor. It's composed of the brain and the spinal cord and can be envisioned as the conductor of our internal orchestra. It is the body's primary processing center, encased and protected by the skull and the bony vertebrae of the spine. The central nervous system is where sensory information from the world is received, processed, and interpreted, and from where commands are issued to the rest of the body. Okay, the brain is the undisputed headquarters of this operation. It is a marble of complexity containing approximately 180 or 100 billion specialized nerve cells or neurons. This organ is in charge of what we think and feel, how we learn and remember, and the way we move and talk. It controls not only our conscious thoughts, but also the myriad of processes we are rarely aware of, such as the steady beating of our hearts and the digestion of our food. The brain is broadly organized into regions such as the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain, each containing structures responsible for everything from higher executive functions like planning and reasoning in the frontal lobe to vital autonomic functions like heartbeat and breathing, regulated by the medulla oblongata in the brainstem. Um, so, the spinal cord acts as the vital two-way superhighway connecting the brain to the body. It relays motor commands from the brain out of the peripheral body and carries sensory information from our sensory organs back up to the brain for processing. It also manages basic muscle reflexes that don't require the brain's direct involvement, such as involuntary recoil from a hot surface. And so the peripheral nervous system in uh, response to that is the musicians. If the central nervous system is the conductor, the facilitator, the peripheral nervous system is the orchestra itself, the drum circle. It's the people in the audience, the vast network of nerves, where those nerves and neurons that branch out from the spinal cord, that central nervous system, extended to every part of the body, including our limbs, organs, and skin. The primary function of the peripheral nervous system is to connect the central nervous system to the rest of the body. So it's like the all the nerves that are in our limbs. It's the what communicates. It's every person in that drum circle is one of the nerves that communicates to the spinal cord, that central nervous system, nervous system of the drum circle, how to engage and respond and react. Um, so serving as a central relay system that carries messages back and forth. It is through the peripheral nervous system that the brain receives information about the world. The feeling of the drum skin under our hands, the sound of the collective rhythm, the sight of others in the circle, those cues that we're getting, it sends out commands to move our muscles in response. So we end up like mirroring each other. Unlike the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system is not protected by bone, which leaves it more exposed, but also allows it to intimately connect with our entire physical being. So there is a vulnerability of being a nerve within that central nervous that's connected to that central nervous system of the drum circle. And that's the where we get the experience. That's where we get the sensations of being alive within that circle. Um, so it's pretty amazing. The two-way superhighway, voluntary action and automatic response. The peripheral nervous system is not a monolithic entity. It is elegant, elegantly subdivided into two functional systems that govern our interaction with the world: the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. This distinction is crucial for understanding the profound multi-layered impact of a drum circle, an activity that uniquely and powerfully engages both systems simultaneously. So the somatic system, which is our body, the conscious drummer, our present moment awareness. The somatic nervous system guides our voluntary movements and actions, the things we consciously choose to do. It is composed of motor neurons that carry signals from the brain and spinal cord to our muscles, allowing us to walk, eat, speak, and most relevantly, play an instrument. When a participant in a drum circle makes the conscious choice to strike the drum, to vary their rhythm, or stop playing, they are utilizing their nervous system. It is the system of intention, physical action, and skilled motor control. Um, so it's through our intention that the nervous system reacts and sends the signals to our body to play the instrument. The autonomic nervous system, the unconscious rhythm. So the things that are maybe a little bit more out of control, that are more intuitive and sensed, automatic. In parallel, the autonomic nervous system works tirelessly in the background, regulating all the bodily processes that happen automatically and without our conscious thought. This is the system that controls our heartbeat, breathing patterns, digestion, sweating, and our immediate responses to stress. While the act of drumming is somatic, the deep therapeutic impact of drumming, the feeling of calm that washes over a group, that surge of energy that's shared, and the palpable sense of connection is a direct result of the rhythm's influence on the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system itself is composed of two primary branches that work in dynamic and complementary balance to maintain our body's internal stability or homeostasis. The sympathetic nervous system, often known as the fight or flight system, this branch prepares the body for action in response to stress, danger, or excitement. When activated, it increases heart rate, quickens breath, tenses muscles, and releases hormones like adrenaline. It mobilizes the body's energy for a rapid, powerful response. In a drum circle, the system is engaged during high energy, fast paced rhythms that create a sense of excitement and activation. So, at the peak states where the song is totally harmonized, people are feeling comfortable, feeling a valued part of the circle, this sympathetic experience comes into play. Um, and, this is also found in all of nature, but in humans, like with animals, if they're in that fight or flight state, it happens for the moment. They shake it off and then they find what's the parasympathetic nervous system of rest and digest. So they get there quicker. We tend to stay in those states of fight or flight, which the drum circle allows us to experience a heightened state and bring it back into a safe zone where we are resting. We don't have to fight. We don't have to fight. We can be present, um, but we can move through those transitions of energy in a safe container. So, parasympathetic, known as the rest and digest or feed and breathe system, this branch does the opposite. It conserves energy, slows the heart rate, deepens breath, and stimulates digestion. It brings the body back to a state of calm equilibrium. This system is engaged when the drum circle moves into a slow, steady meditative rhythm, fostering a collective state of relaxation and safety. The drum circle serves as a unique bridge between these two fundamental aspects of our nervous system. The process begins with the participant making a voluntary, conscious choice to strike a drum, a somatic action. Um, this physical action produces a rhythm, a powerful external sensory signal. This signal, in turn, directly influences the involuntary, unconscious state of the autonomic nervous system, both in the player and those in listening. This is pendulation, which we'll get into. Um, how our nervous systems, our heart rates actually start to sync up. Um, it creates a remarkable feedback loop. A conscious action is used to intentionally modulate the unconscious state of being. The facilitator, therefore, is not merely leading a musical activity, they're guiding participants in the art of using their hands to speak directly to their own and each other's nervous system, bridging the gap between willed action and deep physiological state. Um, that's really powerful. So we're not only influencing our own and communicating with our nervous system, but we're also directly reflecting like a mirror to one another, our own nervous systems. And the collective nervous system starts to sync up. That central nervous system, like I said, the center of that circle really becomes balanced, and it's as a response to the uh, balanced nervous systems of the circle, I think. So, the language of neurons, how messages create meaning. The intricate dance between our conscious actions and unconscious states is made possible by the fundamental language of the nervous system, a process of electrochemical communication known as neurotransmission. Understanding this microscopic process reveals how an external stimulus like rhythm can create profound internal shifts in our mood, energy, and sense of connection. The messengers, neurons and transmitters. As previously mentioned, the nervous system is built from billions of neurons. Each neuron has a cell body, dendrites that receive messages, and an axon that sends messages. When a neuron is activated, it sends an electrical signal called an action potential down the length of its axon. This signal travels with incredible speed, exceeding 100 meters per second in the fastest neurons. However, neurons do not typically touch each other. Between the axon of one neuron and the dendrite of the next is a microscopic gap called the synapse. For the messages to cross this gap, the electrical signal must be converted into a chemical one. When the action potential reaches the end of an axon, it triggers the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters from tiny sacs called synaptic vessels. Lots of details that aren't making a lot of sense to me. Um, we'll get there. Key and lock receptors. These neurotransmitter molecules drive across the synaptic cleft and bind the specific proteins on the surface of the receiving neuron called receptors. This interaction is highly specific, often described as the key fitting into a lock. Once the neurotransmitter, the key, binds to its receptor, the lock, it triggers a change in the receiving neuron, converting the chemical signal back into an electrical one and passing the message along. This binding can have one of two general effects. It can be excitatory, making the receiving neuron more likely to fire its own action potential, or it can be inhibitory, making it less likely to fire. Over our overall state of mind, mood, and arousal is the result of the constant summation of these countless excitatory and inhibitory signals across vast neural networks. The facilitator of a drum circle can be seen as an external modulator of this internal chemical landscape. Um, just as a neurotransmitter carries a specific signal that influences a neuron's activity, the facilitator's cues, their tone of voice, the they introduce, their body language, they're all powerful sensory inputs. The nervous system of the participants receive and process these cues, which in turn trigger specific neurochemical cascades. An invitation to play at fast, joyful rhythm is a sensory input that can prime the release of excitatory and reward related neurotransmitters. A suggestion to slow down to a meditative pulse is a sensory input that can encourage the release of inhibitory and calming neurochemicals. In this way, the facilitator is not just giving instructions, they are acting as a type of external neurotransmitter for the group, using sound and presence to influence the collective neurochemistry and guide the participants toward a desired state of connection, release, or calm. So, this is a journey of the nervous system, right? And so that's why we bring in this science into what we're doing with the Cosmic Pulse drum circles is the neurorhythmic entrainment process, NRE. It's a three phase process that follows this neuroscience of release, resonance, and reclamation. It's being in a ventral vagal state, which we'll get into, calm, relaxed, safe, and moving more into a sympathetic state of heightened awareness, where we've just covered a little bit of that, and then back down into a ventral state with reclamation, integration. Um, Okay, so the neurochemicals of the drum circle. Several key neurotransmitters are particularly relevant to the experiences fostered within a drum circle, as their release is directly influenced by musical activity, social interaction, and emotional expression. Uh, One, dopamine, often called the reward or motivation chemical. Dopamine is central to the brain's pleasure and reward system. It is released during enjoyable activities and reinforced by behaviors that lead to positive outcomes. Um, this can also be something that is triggered with habits that aren't serving us. And so being able to tap into a really powerful modality of um, receiving dopamine in a healthy way is really powerful. In a drum circle, dopamine release can be triggered by the pleasure of creating a cohesive rhythm or the anticipation of a musical peak, enhancing motivation and focus. People getting up, dancing, singing, and us really harmonizing the rhythm, fully locked into the groove. This is that state where we feel that dopamine, that high on life. Um, Joy, right? Serotonin, a neurotransmitter, is the key regulator of mood, emotional stability, and feelings of well being and contentment. Imbalances in serotonin are linked to depression and anxiety. Calming and meditative music, as well as the social bonding in a group setting, can help modulate serotonin levels, promoting a sense of peace and happiness. Um, and this is going to be back in that ventral vagal state. Again, we'll get into that here shortly, of calm, safety, more along the lines of theta brainwave frequencies, where we're inducing a trance-like state through repetitive drumming, heartbeat, um, and then endorphins. These are the body's natural opioids, functioning as potential painkillers and mood elevators. They're released in response to activities like exercise and laughter, producing the euphoric feeling called the runner's high or drummer's high. Active music making, particularly group drumming and singing, is a powerful trigger for endorphin release, which can lead to heightened pain tolerance and a shared sense of elation within the circle. So, when we're really at our peak expression, when we're allowing it to come through and allowing the energy to build, you can experience that in your skin. It feels like you're getting a workout in. You start to sweat. It's beautiful experience. Norepinephrine, as a primary neurotransmitter of the sympathetic nervous system, norepinephrine is integral to the fight or flight response, increasing alertness, arousal, and attention. The energizing rhythms of a drum circle can stimulate its release, contributing to a state of heightened focus and excitement. Um, and then acetylcholine. This versatile neurotransmitter plays a vital role in both the somatic and autonomic nervous systems. It is the chemical that motor neurons release to activate muscles, the somatic act of drumming, and is also the primary neurotransmitter used by the parasympathetic nervous system to slow the heart and promote a state of rest and digest. So there's a lot of powerful things happening in the drum circle that we go unnoticed. These bodies, these vessels, these temples that we have tech are the most advanced technology there is. AI doesn't even touch it. Um, AI is very helpful and a beautiful tool, but it can't recreate what the human body is. The deeper we look, the more we find its intricacies. And so it's cool what sound and vibration and community allows to come through. Part two, the states of being, navigating our inner world with polyvagal theory. While the classic model of a two-part autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, provides a useful foundation, it presents a somewhat binary on-off view of our physiological states. The groundbreaking polyvagal theory, developed by distinguished scientist Dr. Stephen Porges, offers a more nuanced and professionally useful map of our inner world. This theory is arguably the single most valuable framework for a drum circle facilitator, as it provides a precise neurobiological language for understanding safety, connection, threat, and the very essence of human expression. Beyond fight or flight, a three-part autonomic hierarchy. Dr. Porgy's research reveals that the mammalian autonomic nervous system is not simply a two-part system, but a three-part system organized in a distinct hierarchy based on our evolutionary development. Our physiological state, our emotional experience, and our behavioral capacity are all dictated by which of these three circuits is dominant at any given moment. This hierarchy dictates that our nervous system will first attempt to use the newest, most sophisticated circuit to navigate a situation. If that fails, it will subsequently revert to an older, more primitive one. So we are creating new neural pathways, if you will, neural circuits of physiological states, of emotional states, and behavioral patterns. These new signals, these new attempts to give information to the brain. It's gonna our what is it? The brain is going to try to use that information first before it falls back to more of our primitive circuits, our primitive patterns, our primitive programs. The social engagement system, ventral vagal. Here we go. The state of safety and connection. At the top of the hierarchy is the most recently evolved circuit. unique to mammals, the social engagement system. This system is mediated by the myelinated or insulated for speed and efficiency portion of the vagus nerve, a massive cranial nerve that wanders from the brainstem to connect the heart, lungs, and other organs. This branch of the vagus is often called the ventral vagal complex. When our nervous system perceives safety, this system is active. Okay. In the ventral vagal state, our heart rate is calm and regulated. Our breathing is full and deep, and our digestive system functions optimally. Crucially, this state also neurologically links the regulation of our heart with the muscles of our face and head. This face heart connection allows us to express emotions through facial expressions, tune into prosody, tonal quality of human voices, and make comfortable eye contact. The ventral vagal state is the neurophysiological platform for feeling safe, calm, grounded, connected, curious, and playful. It is the optimal state for a drum circle to thrive. And as it is from this foundational state of safety and that creativity, spontaneous expression, and authentic community can emerge. Man, totally feel all of that. Um, we're really finding that ventral vagal state in these circles. Mobilization, the sympathetic, this is where we heighten the energy, state of fight or flight. If the nervous system detects cues of danger or threat, it shifts down the evolutionary ladder, inhibiting the newer ventral vagal system and activating the older sympathetic nervous system. This is the familiar fight or flight response. The primary goal of this state is mobilization, preparing the body for action to survive a threat. Heart rate and respiration accelerate, blood is shunted to the limbs, and stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood to the system. In a drum circle, this state can manifest in several ways. It can be channeled constructively into high energy, powerful, and exciting rhythms, providing a safe and contained outlet for mobilized energy. However, if the environment does not feel safe, this same sympathetic activation can be experienced as anxiety, agitation, restlessness, or even anger or aggression. A key role of the facilitator is to help channel this powerful energy in a way that feels enlivening rather than threatening. And reading this passage really gave me perspective. It helped me to visualize and connect with our past circles. And there's more on this that really resonates true, where I can see people in the circle and based on their body language and their interaction and um, the energy, I can tell which of these states people are in. And that also helps me to understand different components of how to make sure people can feel like they're safe enough to go move into a sympathetic state of expression, um, or when it's time to actually bring it back into a ventral vagal state of safety and calm and rest and digest. um, Really powerful stuff. Immobilization, dorsal vagal, this is the shutdown, state of shutdown, when a threat is perceived as overwhelming and inescapable, when fight or flight is not an option, the nervous system defaults to its most ancient and primitive survival strategy, immobilization. This response is mediated by the unmyelinated or dorsal vagal portion of the vagus nerve, a circuit we share with our reptilian ancestors. The dorsal vagal state is a radical shutdown of the metabolic system to conserve energy, sometimes described as playing dead. In this state, heart rate and blood pressure drop dramatically. Breathing becomes shallow, and a person may feel numb, disconnected, spaced out, hopeless, or dissociated from their body and their surroundings. Um, I experienced this in the drum circle. It's a great perspective, great mirror. In the drum circle, this might be observed in a participant who is slumped in their chair, avoiding all eye contact, not playing their drum, or appearing completely disengaged from the group. This is not a state of calm relaxation, which is ventral vagal, but a profound state of protective disconnection. And what a mirror for our lives. the drum circle is, to see how we show up to the drum circle, and not to change anything about the way that we're showing up, but to look back at our experience there in the circle and notice how our posture was and how engaged we were. And depending on what the answer is that telling us something about how we were in our mind, maybe closed off in that dorsal vagal shutdown, freeze and dissociate state? Or are we more in a sympathetic, or really calm, safe, and relaxed? And how can we bring those feelings into our day-to-day life? Neuroception, the body's unconscious surveillance system. A critical question arises from this hierarchy. What determines which state we are in? The answer, according to Dr. Porges, is not conscious thought, but a subconscious process he termed neuroception. Neuroception is the nervous system's way of constantly scanning our internal and external environments for cues of safety, danger, or life threat, all without involving the thinking parts of our brain. It is this deep biological surveillance system that reflectively shifts our autonomic state to best match the perceived level of risk. So it's like predicting based on the cues that it's getting. This process explains why a baby might coo at a caregiver's gentle face but cry at the approach of a stranger, or why we might feel an unexplainable sense of unease in a particular room or with a particular person. Our nervous system is picking up on subtle cues, body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, environmental sounds. And I would also add in that that's a lot based on our own experience, our own traumas. We're seeing those things through our own lens, and I can say that from my own experience. And making an instantaneous judgment about safety long before our conscious mind has had time to analyze the situation. For a drum circle facilitator, this concept is paramount. The participants' nervous systems are neurocepting the entire experience, picking up all the cues from participants. The facilitator's calm and welcome tone of voice, open and relaxed body language, genuine smile, and appropriate eye contact are all powerful neuroceptive cues of safety. These cues signal to the participant's nervous system that it is safe to inhibit the older defense system, sympathetic and dorsal, and activate the ventral vagal system of social engagement. Conversely, a facilitator who is rushed, tense, or critical, or an environment that is chaotic and unpredictable can send neuroceptive cues of danger, making it difficult for the group to settle in to a state of connection and creative flow. And this is, again, is a reflection for myself in my facilitation, is how my nervous system is. Leading from a state of a centered nervous system, a calm nervous system, being in my own ventral vagal and helping to be a part of that pendulation, again, that we'll get into. Co-regulation, the biological imperative for connection. Polyvagal theory powerfully reframes our understanding of social interaction. As mammals, our nervous system are not designed to be self-sufficient, isolated entities, supposed to be in community. They are wired for connection and are exquisitely designed to attune and be regulated by the nervous systems of others. This process is known as co-regulation, something we're doing in the drum circle. When a distressed child is soothed by a parent's calm embrace, that is co-regulation. When we feel our own anxiety lessen in the presence of a calm, grounded friend, that is co-regulation. One nervous system is literally lending its regulatory capacity to another. How powerful is it that we can influence each other's nervous system, regulating each other? The more, which goes back to the adage of, fix yourself first kind of thing. We're the most important thing that we can focus on because we are influencing the people around us. And that comes into how safe we feel with one another and how we can open up and express ourselves. And then learn that it's safe to do that because we've been conditioned to believe otherwise. The drum circle is a quintessential engine of co-regulation. The shared external rhythm provides a powerful, predictable, and organizing sensory input that allows dozens of individual nervous systems to synchronize and attune to one another. The rhythm becomes a common language that bypasses the need for words, allowing for deep physiological communion. A steady grounding rhythm played by the group can provide a powerful regulating force for an individual feeling anxious, sympathetically activated. So in the circle, we're actually supporting other people, especially if we are feeling in a great mood, to help other lift each other up. And even if we're not in that mood, there are people there that can help lift our own mood and synchronize our energies. Or disconnected, dorsally shut down, gently inviting their nervous systems to entrain with the calmer, safer state of the collective. This is why being in a group that feels in the groove is not just musically satisfying, it is a deeply regulating and healing experience on a neurobiological level. From this polyvagal perspective, the primary role of the facilitator becomes clear. It is not simply to teach rhythms, but to be the ventral vagal anchor for the group. The facilitator's ability to self-regulate, again, what I was saying earlier, to consciously maintain their own nervous systems in a calm, open, and engaged ventral vagal state is their most crucial tool. Locking that one in. By embodying the state, they broadcast the most potent neuroceptive cues of safety into the circle. This creates a safe container, a field of regulation that allows participants to feel secure enough to let go of their defensive postures. The safety is the necessary precondition for regulation to occur, allowing the group to move from a collection of individuals into a cohesive, connected, and rhythmically resonant whole. Furthermore, rhythm itself can be used as a map to safely navigate the autonomic nervous system and states. A skilled facilitator can intentionally structure the rhythmic journey of a drum circle to mirror the polyvagal hierarchy. So this is now getting into the way that we facilitate the circle from ventral vagal to sympathetic back to ventral vagal. Using a 5-step formula, we have 3 pillars or core ethos for the circle, but the pillars is, those core touch points that help to arouse the nervous system in a safe way and integrate deeper connection with self and others. So, establishing a ventral vagal baseline. Simple, slow heartbeat. I'm not going to get into this too much. Sympathetic mobilization, from that baseline, creating rhythms, harmonies, starting to enhance the energy, moving more into that sympathetic state, returning to ventral vagal, but only after reaching a state of heightened expression and play of releasing those endorphins and feeling fully alive in that experience and expressing whatever needs to be expressed. That's a big part of it. It's a safe container to do so, which is then where we bring it back into a ventral vagal state of integration, of calm, to remind our nervous system that it's safe to express, to be in a sympathetic state, to release that energy, but then we have these tools to come back and calm ourselves, balance ourselves, ground ourselves, in stillness, full surrender, release, to listen to the silence and really address and comprehend the profoundness of what we create. Um, so, the body remembers trauma, resilience, and somatic awareness. Building upon the foundation of polyvagal theory, we now turn to the profound impact of overwhelming life experiences on the nervous system. The work of pioneering researchers and clinicians such as Dr. Peter A. Levine, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and Dr. Pat Ogden has revolutionize our understanding of trauma, shifting the focus from a purely psychological event to a deeply physiological one. The somatic, body based perspective illuminates why the nonverbal physical medium of the drum circle can be such a powerful modality for processing stress and fostering resilience. So, the freeze response and trapped survival energy. Dr. Peter Levine's seminal work, Somatic Experiencing, originated from a key observation: animals in the wild, despite facing constant life or death threats, rarely exhibited the symptoms of trauma that are so common in humans. He concluded that trauma is not inherent in the event itself, but rather in the nervous system's response to it. So it's what the nervous system receives and integrates into itself. It's the reaction, that burst of energy that happens from whatever the scenario is. Um, Specifically, trauma occurs when our biological self protective responses, fight or flight, are overwhelmed and thwarted. When we are unable to successfully fight back or flee, the nervous system defaults to its most primitive survival strategy, the freeze response, which corresponds to the dorsal vagal state of immobilization. During this freeze, a tremendous amount of energy, survival energy that was mobilized for action, gets locked or trapped in the body. Um, which also then produces chemicals in the body for stress, using adrenaline, cortisol, and over time, those things start to manifest as dis-ease and unwellness within the body. Um, Wild animals instinctively discharge this bound energy after the threat has passed through involuntary shaking, trembling, and deep breaths, allowing their nervous system to reset. Humans, however, often override these natural discharges mechanisms with the more recently evolved parts of our brain, which can misinterpret these involuntary movements as a sign of weakness or loss of control. Animals, they shake it off and return to ventral vagal state, but um, it's hard for us humans to move past it. It takes a lot of time, especially if we don't utilize our tools, tools of breathing, tools of shaking out, using our somatics, drumming on a drum. We don't always have like a drum, but our bodies are our instruments, and we have the tools immediately. We have the things necessary built into us to help us to shake loose those traumas faster, which shortens that gap of that trauma having a more long-term effect on our life. As Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's influential book title proclaims, the body keeps the score. This unresolved survival energy remains lodged in the nervous system, which continues to operate as if the threat is still present, even years or decades later. This result is in a chronically dysregulated nervous system, leading to the host of symptoms associated with trauma and chronic stress: hypervigilance, anxiety, depression, dissociation, chronic pain, and an impaired ability to connect with others. Somatic storytelling, the body's unspoken narrative. Because trauma is stored physiologically, approaches that rely solely on cognitive processing or talk therapy can be limiting. They primarily engage the neurocortex, the thinking part of the brain, while the root of the dysregulation lies in the more primitive nonverbal brainstem and limbic system. This is where somatic psychology offers a crucial body first approach. Dr. Pat Ogden, the founder of sensomotor psychotherapy, speaks of the somatic narrative, the story that the body tells through its posture, gestures, sensations, and impulses. This narrative often exists independently of and may even contradict the verbal story a person tells. The neural cortex, the thinking brain, what the brain is thinking, but the body is telling a different story. For example, a person might verbally insist they are fine while their body is communicating a story of tension and fear through a clenched jaw, shallow breathing, and a hunched posture. The body is communicating what the mind isn't comprehending. Healing from this perspective involves learning to listen to and work with this unspoken body level story. The drum circle provides an exceptionally direct and accessible channel for this somatic storytelling. Drumming is inherently nonverbal. It bypasses the need to find words for experiences that may be pre-verbal or too overwhelming to articulate. The physical act of striking a drum can be a direct expression of the body's impulses and stored energy. So a lot of times we're actually playing how we're feeling. A powerful, angry rhythm can give voice to a long suppressed fight response. A rapid, fleeing rhythm can express a flight impulse. A soft, tentative tapping can communicate vulnerability. In the circle, participants are given permission to let their bodies speak through the drum, allowing the somatic narrative to unfold and be witnessed in a safe, contained environment. This process can be profoundly healing because it offers a pathway to complete the very self-protective motor responses that were thwarted during the original overwhelming event. The physical, rhythmic act of drumming provides a direct, safe, and symbolic means for the body to finally execute these impulses. The drum can represent a boundary being asserted, an obstacle being pushed through, or a powerful expression of one's own life force. When a participant strikes the drum with force and intention, it is not merely an act of letting steam off. On a neurophysiological level, their nervous system may be completing a biological survival action that was frozen in time. Boom. This completion can send a powerful signal deep into the primitive brain that the threat is finally over, allowing the nervous system to begin to shift out of a state of chronic defense and back toward regulation and safety. Ooh, drum circles, baby. Let's go. Principles of somatic release, pendulation, and titration. Okay, here we go. This was really cool. Releasing this deeply held survival energy must be done carefully to avoid overwhelming the nervous system, which could lead to re-traumatization. Somatic therapies are built on two core principles for safely working with this energy: titration and pendulation. So, titration, this is the principle borrowed from chemistry that refers to working with traumatic activation in small manageable amounts. Instead of flooding the system with the full intensity of the traumatic memory or sensation, the process involves touching into it just a little at a time, allowing the nervous system to process and integrate the experience without becoming overwhelmed. Pendulation. This is the natural rhythm of the nervous system. It's oscillation between states of contraction and expansion, activation and settling, distress and calm. In a therapeutic context, pendulation involves guiding a person's attention to oscillate between a sensation of traumatic activation, the trauma vortex, and the sensation of resource, safety, and calm in the body, going back and forth between the sensations, the counter vortex or healing vortex. This rhythmic shifting gradually discharges the trapped energy and builds the nervous system's capacity and resilience. A well-facilitated drum circle is a natural environment for practicing both titration and pendulation. The steady, cohesive rhythm of the group serves as a powerful external resource, a counter vortex of safety and predictability. A participant can be encouraged to play a solo with allowing them to touch into their own individual energy and expression, a potential moment of activation. When their solo is complete, they are immediately welcomed back into the larger holding rhythm of the group, allowing their nervous system to settle and return to the resource of the collective. A somatically informed facilitator can consciously use these principles to create a profoundly therapeutic experience. Instead of pushing for constant high energy, which could be dysregulating for some, they act as a somatic guide. They intentionally create rhythmic valleys after the peaks, guiding the group from a powerful crescendo back into a simple grounding heartbeat rhythm. They use verbal cues that anchor participants in the present moment sensory experience. Feel the vibration of the drums on your hands. Notice your feet on the floor. Feel the support of the chair beneath you, which are key somatic resources and cues. They control the dynamic range of the circle, titrating the overall energy level to keep the experience within the group's collective window of tolerance, the optimal zone of arousal where learning and connection can happen. This transforms facilitation from simple musical direction into a sophisticated application of therapeutic principles, making the experience not only enjoyable, but also deeply and safely healing. Part five. This will be, I believe, our last part. The rhythmic brain, the neurological and neurochemical impact of the drum. The previous sections established the foundational architecture of the nervous system and the experiential states it produces. Now we delve into the specific measurable mechanisms that explain how the physical act of drumming creates such profound changes within that system. The science of rhythm reveals that the drum is far more than a simple instrument. It is a potent tool for altering brainwave patterns, triggering beneficial neurochemical cascades, and physically reshaping the structure of the brain itself. Rhythmic entrainment, the brain on rhythm. The primary neurological mechanism behind the transformative power of drumming is a phenomenon known as rhythmic entrainment, part of the neurorhythmic entrainment process. Entrainment is a principle rooted in physics, first observed by scientist Christian Huygens in 1665 when he noticed that two pendulum clocks hanging on the same wall would eventually synchronize their swings. It describes the process by which two or more independent oscillating systems, through the transfer of small amounts of energy, lock in a common rhythm. In neuroscience, this principle applies directly to the brain's own electrical activity. The brain is constantly generating rhythmic electrical impulses or brain waves, which can be measured with an cephalograph. These brain waves are associated with different states of consciousness. Rhythmic entrainment, in this context, refers to the capacity of the brain's neural oscillations to synchronize with the rhythm of periodic external stimuli, such as flickering lights, or most powerfully, the auditory beat. The steady, predictable pulse of a drum acts as a powerful auditory driver. The sound waves are processed by the auditory system and translated into neural signals. These signals can entrain large populations of neurons to fire in synchronicity with the beat, effectively shifting the dominant brainwave frequency of the listener toward the frequency of the drum. This provides a direct physical mechanism for guiding consciousness. By choosing specific tempos, a facilitator can intentionally invite the group's collective brainwave state to shift, thereby architecting a desired state of consciousness. This reframes the facilitator's role from that of a music leader to an applied neuroscientist, using sound to modulate the very fabric of group's awareness. Beta waves. I don't know why it has it covered here. Anyway, associated with normal waking consciousness, alertness, logic, and critical reasoning. Faster, more complex rhythms can help engage a state of focused attention. Alpha waves. So beta waves is going to be more of a heightened state. Alpha waves are the relaxed, calm, meditative states. This is the state of restful awareness, conducive to learning and light trance. Many therapeutic rhythm programs, such as rhythmic entrainment intervention, um, specifically target this frequency range to improve overall brain function and sensory processing. A steady rhythm around 8 to 12 beats per second can entrain this state, which is still pretty fast. Theta waves. This is deep trance, meditation, heightened creativity. This is used a lot in journey work for shamanic practices. The traditional tempo of shamanic journeying, drumming approximately 4.5 beats per second, 270 beats per minute, falls directly in this range and is specifically used to induce deep altered state of consciousness. Gamma waves, fastest brainwave frequency, associated with peak cognitive functioning, insight, problem solving, and heightened state of awareness and happiness. Complex, unpredictable, and polyrhythmic drumming has been shown to stimulate gamma activity, activating the brain for higher level of processing. This is like when there's polyrhythms, when there's multiple rhythms happening at once, but it's synchronized, it's harmonized. There's a higher level and capacity for processing. We're hearing, we're listening, we're sensing, we're seeing all the different things that are happening in the drum circle at once, and facilitating and our own actions. So this gets much deeper into these things, but that's all I'm going to cover for today. If there's a desire for more, feel free to leave a comment. But to wrap it up, to kind of synthesize this, drumming is purely the physical manifestation of the desire to heal in whatever modality that is for us. And at its core can really be spotted at the nervous system, at our balances and imbalances through our traumas, because the nervous system is basically giving us a lens, a filter to react to the world with. And so, if we can work from that state, which is the body, work with the body to entrain different states and create new neural connections within the brain, that the brain then remembers and helps to store and integrate that energy, that information into the nervous system, so that the nervous system reacts to the outside world from a different place, from more centeredness, more groundedness, which is just going to give us an overall better life. It allows us, when we go through our lives, to help and train other people to our own state of being, which is helping to impact the world. We need more regulated nervous systems in this world. And so, somatics is our practice, the body. How are we utilizing our breath, our body, our expression, our voice, our movements to bring us back into a ventral vagal state of safety, of when we find ourselves in those heightened states, or maybe shutting down in that dorsal vagal, fight or flight. We want to flee, we want to fight back. When we find ourselves in those energies, you know, uh, fight or flight can be constructive, but it can also be destructive if we stay in those states. But we have tools in somatics to get us out of those states and back into ventral vagal. And same with dorsal vagal, of immobilization, just fully tapped out on life. We can find the rhythm and bring ourselves back into a cohesive and coherent brain wave state, and retrain our brain. It is practice. It is something we have to, or we get to utilize at our own disposal. It's available to us in every moment. We got our body and our voice and our expression. So this is pretty profound, pretty beautiful to read. I've read it a few times now, and I anticipate I'll read it a few more times and continue to dive deeper into the neuroscience, the how the nervous system is playing its role in our life experience and how we can utilize the drum circle as a modality for creating positive change in our reactions to life. So, if you like this video, leave a like, leave your comment. I'd love to hear your feedback. What is a takeaway that you had? Is there a connection that has been made? Maybe it's even beyond the drum circle, but just, you know, even in modalities that you practice. Would love to hear from you. Share this with your friends and subscribe to the channel. We will see you in another video soon. Peace.